Let's go! What does the fox say? Ling, 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 ling. Welcome all the people. This is gonna be Wild Soul Guide. I'm gonna cover both of the specs here. If I go over to the rough playstyle of Wild Soul, there's like, two different kind of skills, comprehensively. Skills that you can use when you're in the human form like this. And there's a skill that you can use by transforming yourself either to the fox or bear. Like bear, like that. And then you can transform into the fox. And then, come back to bear, like so on and so forth. So technically 3 different kind of skills. Her party synergy is armor break 12%. And her HP and armor coefficient is, for HP, 2.1, as you see. And for the armor, it's 100%. So she's like in the average. When it comes to difficulty, she's relatively considered easier to play class than, most other classes. If I try to compare in between the spec build and the crit swift build, people say when you're trying to pursue the ceiling damage, then crit swift is harder to play than the spec build. By the way, crit swift is the non-transformation build and spec build is the transformation build. So the transformation is easier to play than the non-transformation in general, what people say. And lastly, how strong is she? Both of the builds are strong, especially the spec build, the transformation build, this one. This one is one of the strongest right now among the Hitmaster classes. The Crit Swift build is doing less damage than that, but it is pretty strong as well. Okay, let's go over to the Crit Swift build first, the non-transformation. So the identity part have to do with the enlightenment point part, right? Basically, you can build up meter by using the skills. And not just that, you can tell that it's naturally increasing as well. So you use the skills like this, then they get filled up. And then when you get maxed, you can click Z. And during the Z, what happens is that from the enlightenment point, you get 20% attack speed, movement speed, which allows you to use the raid captain and mass increase. You also get some orbs that gets absorbed to your character. The orbs are getting absorbed to your character, as you see when you're in the Z mode from the monster, and you can see the stack is building up above the HP. What she can do is that if you click the Z again in the Z mode, then it consumes all the stacks, which is 20 max. Let me use the skills first. And if I click Z, it resets the skill's cooldown and also restores the mana instantly. The more stacks you have, then the more amount of the cooldown and the mana it reduces and generates. So for example, going to the Z mode and it's getting absorbed even though I'm not doing anything, right? It's now on 8 stacks. So let's say I use some skills like this, then the Z. Then the cooldown didn't get completely reset, and that is because I used it, not 20. That's how it works. If you use it on the more stack, then it will pretty much reset the entire cooldown. On the third point, it says your crit damage increases by 60% when you're in the Z mode. Because of this, you cannot use a Keen Blunt on this build. And lastly, her 4th main node, it allows you to spacebar 2 times. Your spacebar basically can be stacked up to 2. Your damage of your skills increase as well. Every time you land your skill on the boss, then it reduces the spacebar cooldown a little bit. Let me show you by not in the Z mode first. So if I use spacebar, it's just like that. I can't use it 2 times. But when I'm in the full Z mode, then you can spacebar 2 times like that, and when it comes back, you can spacebar 2 times like, any time. You don't have to use both of them at the same time. You can just use one at a time like this. And then again, like that. So this increases her survivability and also make her playstyle more flexible. So she has a good utility. This build has skills that increases her meter like this. And then when it's maxed out, you know that it gives 20% ASMS and 60% crit damage, right? So you activate, and then you want to use the main DPS skills like this. This is the idea. So if I give you an example to what class the playstyle is similar to, people say, like, you know, remaining energy, but not a back attacker, or maybe like slower version of Emperor Arcana kind of stuff. If you like that playstyle, this Crit Swift build is for you. Alright, let's go to the detail of the build. The Crit Swift build can be divided into two different kind of arc passive settings and engraving, depending on whether you learned 20 Adrenaline Relic engraving book or not. First one is when you have Legendary Adrenaline, which increases 14% crit rate. Then you run Critical for Elixir, crit rate for the first priority for the ring, and the crit damage on second. For the engraving, Grudge, Adrenaline Legendary, Raid Captain, Mass Increase, Precise Dagger. For the Arc Passive Evolution part, you want to put very high crit stat, almost 30 like this. You go Boundless Mana, and one of this, and Magic Stream, and then Mana Forge like this. Enlightenment point, yeah, you go all in on the main node for the Crit Swift build. And for the side node, this one increases damage of your skills by a little bit. But this one, the third one, increases by a lot, like, you know, over 30%. But it has a 10% chance for that to pop up, spam OM. From the research, people say that considering the 10% rate, this tripod does more damage in average than this one, the consistent one. So you go for this one. And lastly, for the leap part, you go for the classic setting on the first row, and second row, this one. If I give you a summary, the Legendary Adrenaline, you get 65% from having around 1800 crit stat by putting 30 level here, right? So that's 65. And then you get 14% from Legendary Adrenaline, 18 to 21 depending on if you have Legendary or Relic Precise Dagger. And lastly, the ring has potential to give up to 3.1%, right? Because it's 1.55% each for the high roll. And that will easily go to 100%. Your goal for the Crit Swift build is no matter what, you want the crit rate to be on 100%. Her skills pretty much all increases high amount of crit damage as well for this build. But you remember that she gets 60% crit damage from her identity as well, right? So that's a lot of crit damage, like, you know, around 350 or even more. And therefore, you want your crit rate to be at 100. And this is another reason why you do not run Blunt Thorn. You have to run Mana Forge. Blunt Thorn decreases the damage. Alright, the second case is when you have Relic Adrenaline. So that's 20% crit rate, right? Then you go Master Elixir, not Critical. You change the Precise Dagger into Curse Doll, and then you change 1 point from here, the Forbidden, into the Keen Sense, and the others are same. By doing that, what you get is the crit rate is same, right? 65% from the stat. Adrenaline gives 20 now instead of 14. Master gives 7.5%. Keen Sense at level 1 gives 4%, and the ring giving this much equals to 100. Some people might ask, what if you get crit synergy into the party? You have to flex it basically. Just lower some, like, you know, stuff that gives crit rate. For example, lower the crit stat and give some point to the Swift. Okay, now the skills. The green one is the human form skills. Blue one is the fox form skill, and yellow ones are the bear form skills. This is a non-transformation, right? But as you can see, it's running the blue and the yellow skill, which are transformation. How? Because from the tripod, there are this kind of tripod that turns the transformation into a non-transformation. Spam noted. So these three are technically green skill at the moment for this build. So if I use these three skill, she doesn't transform, but she summons the fox like that, or summons the bear like that as a human form. For the party synergy, it is this skill. It shoots a fox like that. And this one is her counter skill. This counter skill is actually busted because it's very wide. As you see, she grabs like this. She embraces. And because of that, what can happen is that you can actually counter from the side. Like, around from here, this angle, to like that. This is actually a counter. She uses 4 DPS skills. This, and this. So that's 4 DPS. Alright, for the 4 DPS skill, this is how you go for it. It's in Korean, but let me walk you through. So this part means the level of the tripod, and this part is the position. Like first line, second tripod, second line, second tripod, and third line, second tripod. That's what it means. It also shows what gems you want to run on each of the skills, and also the rune as well. The rune has some weird translation. Richness is the wealth rune, Gale is the gale wind. So by the time the class comes out, you can easily copy this by looking at the skill image. So this is the 4 DPS skill. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now there's a 5 DPS skill set as well, which looks like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. This rune is Vision rune, by the way, the one that increases a slight amount of the animation speed and the stagger as well. The 5 DPS build is around 3.5% stronger than the 4 DPS build. But the thing is, the 4 DPS skill has like some advantage over the 5 DPS. It has shorter DPS rotation, so it's quick, and it's easier to build the identity meter. When you go out of the meter, then you have to build the meter by using green skills, right? And that part, it's very stabilized. It gets filled up, fast and stable. On the other hand, the 5 DPS takes a little bit more seconds to come back. So TLDR 5 DPS is stronger but higher risk than the 4 DPS. So let me just show you this part. So let me show you this part later on the rotation. All right, next one is the gem priority. So this part is the 4 DPS build. You can see the damage gem priority like this, starting from here and the least here, the counter skill. And for the cooldown gem priority like that. And for the 5 DPS build, you go like this. This is the new skill for the 5 DPS, right? Like that. And for cooldown, like that. Lastly, the rotation. Let me go for the 4 DPS rotation first. After applying the party synergy, you activate Z to turn it on, and then go T and all these 4, the 4 DPS skill. This one, the rolling effect of the image, is a semi DPS skill. You use that at the end, and then you click Z again to reset some of the cooldown. Use these 2 green skills when they come back, and then use the 4 DPS skill, and then Z again, reset the cooldown, and then do the same thing, and then X. X means going out, right? And then start using these skills to build the meter. If you land all these 6 skills, then perfectly your meter gets back. Let me show you the demonstration. Before you enter the raid, you will most likely have the full meter because it fills up naturally pretty fast, as you see. So let's say that you're in the full meter before going to the raid like this. Then what you want to do is you want to apply the armor party synergy first. What is that? This skill right here. So you apply the party synergy first, and then Z into D, and then the 4 DPS skill like that, and the semi DPS skill, and then Z. Then the skill cooldown got reduced, right? You use the F, the counter skill, or the D skill like that, and then when it comes back, the 4 skills, then use them like that. And then click the Z again. And keep on using it, except for the Q and W, because those are the meter build skills. And then use these skills, and then go back. Then you use these Q and W like this, and then D and F, then perfectly comes back, activate, and you do the rotation like that. And you keep on repeating this. And this is the 5 DPS build rotation. You start with the Z, T, and then the new skill, and the other 4 skills as well. So these 5 are 5 DPS skill, and the semi DPS skill, the rolling. And then use Z again to reset the cooldown, and then use some other green skill like this, and then the 5 DPS skill, and then Z and some green skill, and 5 DPS skill is pretty easy, right? And then X, like go out. If you can use a Z before X, then yes you can. And then use these other green skills to build up the meter. Now the thing is this, compared to the previous rotation, it's missing this fox looking skill, right? Because of that, as I told you in the memo, this one is a bit more unstabilized on building up the meter. But the thing is, there is a way to minimize that risk on this build. The trick is, from the previous 4 DPS build rotation, blue skill first, right? Compared to other DPS skill, because this one has a long animation, long frontal delay. That's why this skill. See, it has a frontal delay for the fox to be summoned. For the 5 DPS build, you use that as the last skill of the 5 DPS skill. Now, the reason why using X right after the A is so important is because let me show you how the meter is like if I don't do that. So let's say that I just go out right away by not using this, right? And have to build up the meter by using the Q, D, and F, and Q. And that's it. It's lacking a lot of meter, and you have to wait for like several seconds until it naturally fills up. And then you can finally go into the DPS rotation like that. That's why. Let me show you one more time what happens again if I use the A skill before the X. So A and X. D, Q, F, and Q. And then a little bit, and then comes back. See, that's a huge difference. That saved like around like 3 seconds, which matters a lot for the DPS uptime. Downside is that the A skill, which is one of the DPS skill, it doesn't get benefit from the 20% ASMS and the 60% crit damage because you X out. So the flame goes after the X. I heard that Saint Tone already have the Chris Swift build that can do some trick regarding this, so you can watch his video. For me, this is what I came down to by researching through the invent. Let me cover the spec build, the transformation build. So whenever you use the green skill, it builds up the center meter like that. And when it has a certain amount, you can use the bear or the fox skill. If you use the bear skill, then it builds the meter like this of the yellow. And if you use the fox skill, by the way, it's transforming to the bear. Then it transforms to the fox, and the fox meter got built up like that. And when it's maxed out, you can use a strong Z skill and do a lot of damage. This can be done even in the bear mode. If you transfer to the bear like this and use Z, then it use the strong attack like that. And right now it says you can't use any of the transformation skill, right? How you do it is, again, use the green skills, the human skill, to build the center meter, then yeah, it comes back. Because whenever you use it, it requires some of the meter. It consumes it like that. And builds its own color meter. And you max it out and click the Z again. That is the whole idea of this transformation build. Let me go over to our enlightenment first. So the first line, whenever you use the transformation skill, the blue or the yellow, then you get a stack that's shown on the character like this. Currently has 2 stacks. When you have 1 stack, then he heals his HP 1% of the max every 10 seconds. 2 stack, the attack speed of the transformation skills increased by 10%. And lastly, 3 stacks, then it applies a armor break party synergy to the enemy. So this means that when you have 3 stacks like this, then as you see below the boss's HP, it will infinitely sustain this armor break synergy. By the way, all the stack buff, you will get it if you have 3 stacks, of course. This one, your crit rate of all the transformation skill increases by 30%. That's crazy. And more effect. When you're in the bear mode, then you get 10% less incoming damage. When you're in the fox, you get 20% more attack speed. And the third node, it increases the damage of the transformation skills by 20%. And the identity meter gauge for the yellow and blue increases more. And last one, the fourth one, it increases the damage of all the transformation skill by 20 at level 3. And not only that, it increases the damage of the Z skill, the identity skill, by 40%. But it will terminate 3 stack buff you have. But this is easy to build, as you see. Whenever you use any of these skills, it applies. The spec build also have 2 different kind of build that are trending. The first one that I'm gonna introduce is called 3-1-4 build. It's using 3 green skill, 1 yellow skill, and 4 blue skills. The condemnation means conviction, wrong translation, and referee is the judgment. Follow-up is the quick recharge. And again, richness is the wealth rune. By the way, this skill right here is the counter for this build. Alright, there's also a build called 3-2-3. So 3 green skill, 2 yellow skill, and 3 blue skills. Now, just like Crit Swift build, there's a pros and cons of each build for this spec build. The 3-2-3, which is using more bear skill, is around 3% stronger than the 3-1-4, which uses 4 of the fox skills. But there are some advantages that 3-1-4 has over the 3-2-3. It's easier and faster to land the triple Z. So your goal is to land Z 3 times as fast as you can, and 3-1-4 allows that faster than 3-2-3. And it's easier to build the meter as well, so more stabilized, like less risk. And it has higher party synergy and adrenaline uptime because the blue skills have like shorter cooldown and has faster animation, the Fox. So TLDR 3-2-3 is stronger but higher risk. So for the build, you run critical elixir, and your first priority is crit damage, and the crit rate is the second priority. Engraving, Grudge, Adrenaline, Keen Blunt, Curse Stall, Hitmaster. You can run like something like Stabilized Status over Hitmaster, but Hitmaster is recommended. For the evolution part, Spec Crit, you go for this, and this one, which increases 24% crit rate, and this one. For the alignment point, you go all the way here. For this part, what it does is that, so the one on the top decreases the cooldown of the transformation skills whenever you switch from Fox to Bear and, back and forth. But this effect applies only once per 12 seconds. And this one right here has good utility. Every 10 seconds, your spacebar cooldown resets whenever you transform. Let's see how it works. So right now, let's say that I use the spacebar in the Fox form, like this. It's in cooldown. If I transform to a bear, then it resets and use the spacebar again. But it would not work again if I change, since it says once per 10 seconds. For the leap part, you go like this, and you go for this part, the first one right here. So with this being said, let's look at the overall crit rate of this build. The crit rate, you get like 20% plus by having 600 crit stat. You get 24% from this evolution tripod, the Zealous Smite. You get 30% from the identity, as I told you. And 14 to 20% depending on whether, legendary or relic adrenaline. And 0 to 3.1% from the rings. That averages to 88 to 100% crit rate for this build. For the gem priority, this is the 3-1-4, the 4 Fox skill build. Obviously, for the damage gem, you prioritize the Z skill, and then in this sequence. And for the cooldown gem, in this kind of sequence. For the 3-2-3 build, which uses 2 bear skill, this is how the priority goes. And by the way, if you're running the 3-2-3 build, then the leap part is slightly different. You go for the second tripod on the second line instead of the first one. So this is the rotation for 3-1-4. You kick off with the party synergy skill into the bear, and then use the blue skills into the Z, build some meter by using the green skill, and then blue skill, and then into the T and Z. T basically is a bear skill, so it changes you to the bear from the Fox. So you can do Z on the bear mode, and then build a meter with the green skills again, and then spam the blue skills, and then use the Z. This is one rotation, so let me show you. You use the party synergy by using this skill first, and then into the bear, and the 2 of these skills into Z. Then it does a lot of damage like that, and then refill by using these 2 green skills into the blue skills. And then you use the T skill to transform to bear and Z right away. And then use the 2 of these green skills. And then spam all the blue skills. And then it immediately fills the full Z and use the Z again. That's one rotation. So for the 3-2-3 rotation, obviously you kick off with this skill that apply party synergy, and then with this new skill, the bear into the blue with the Z skill afterward, and build a meter with the green skill, then blue skill into the T, that's a bear transformation, into some of the bear skill and Z, and build a meter by using the green skills, and do the damage rotation like this. And at the end with the blue Z skill. So if I try to do this, so party synergy, bear into these skill and the Z. And then build a meter with the 2 green skill and the blue skill, holding skill, and the T, you transfer into the bear and use this skill into the Z. And then build a meter by using the green skills and the bear, then use the fox skills and get the full meter like that. Z. That is one rotation. Alright, anyways, that's all for today. Hope you guys like the video, and by the time it comes out, especially the images are very easy to, save, right? Hope the images help out. Human form? Fox form? Look at my ass! And then bear form. Stay gear chat. Spam loaded.